Hi there. We're looking at how we can build back better. Um, and in particular, uh, hello. We're looking at the idea of building back better. And in particular, what the role of professionals and professional organizations might be in the work of building back better after the pandemic. Now, I'm recording this in March, March the 2nd. So we don't know how long the pandemic will run for. And in some parts of North America, it continues to be a virulent problem with new strains of the virus appearing. And we don't know if the vaccines will be effective against all of them. We also know that a number of people will refuse vaccines. So still an early stage. I'm not being called for my vaccine. I'm just a young person at the age of 70. So April, May is when I'm expecting to be called. If I was in Britain, I would have been done by now, but that's a whole different story. So this is our topic, building back better. Now, I shared this in a previous video. This is from my colleagues in the UK, Heidrich and Struggles, who've been looking at this issue of what's going to happen to the economy and what's going to happen to social trust, and have produced these four scenarios for a possible future. One of the key concerns is, will we be able to choose a preferred future, or will we fall into one of these scenarios whether we like it or not? So for example, in the United States, there are, in a sense, lots of examples in various different parts of the United States of the growing divide. But in other parts of the United States, we can see elements of either in this together or tech-powered humanity. So it's not going to be a clear choice that we make. We're going to find ourselves following the direction of traffic in our own jurisdictions or in our own communities. So what does build back better mean? Well, it's pretty clear that for various governments around the world and for various community organizers, it means a greener economy, shifting from petrol and gas and gasoline into clean energy sources, but also looking at house design, building design, and thinking about smart buildings that are not only smart in terms of the use of technology, but also in terms of their impact on the environment from the moment of design through construction right through to occupation. Is this building smart in the sense of being green? A second kind of theme that's emerged is this whole thing about equity, diversity, and inclusion, the so-called EDI agenda. And what became very clear in the pandemic is that poorer people, indigenous people, people from certain kind of ethnic groups are are affected by the pandemic in radically different ways from the white, wealthy middle class. And we're all affected in different ways from the super rich. And so I think this whole issue of equity, diversity, and inclusion is at the fore. And it's raising issues around in higher education about the colonial nature of curriculum. It's raising all sorts of very interesting issues in organizations about respect for different people, for transgender people, for people of different religious backgrounds, and so on. And it's clearly a problem. I live in Edmonton, and we've had a number of racist incidents in the last few weeks, particularly attacking Muslim women. So we have a problem with this whole issue of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And a particular group that we can look at and say, we've not done well by this group for the last 100 years or more, is our indigenous communities and our indigenous people. They don't get a fair shot at simple things like clean water, simple things like quality healthcare and quality education. We could do a lot better. in terms of supporting the rights of our Indigenous peoples. Now, the course is all about productivity and competitiveness, so I don't need to say a lot about that. You're already into some of those issues. But equally, building back better means strengthening education, health, and the social safety net. We need to think about how we reimagine education and health, given what we've now seen, especially in relation to things like elder care or the inability of some people to understand science or to accept truth. In fact, this whole notion of fake news, the idea that COVID itself is a hoax, or that COVID is caused by 5G towers in the community, this kind of nonsense tells us something about how we need to think about our focus for education. And that's why in the model I just shown you, the 4 scenarios, rebuilding trust, social trust, is a very important thing to do. And that's why I'm focusing in particular on the role of professionals, engineers, teachers, doctors, and others, accountants, lawyers, in helping to build back this notion of social trust. And in these professions, I would include journalists as a profession. So let's talk about professional organizations, the engineering bodies, the medical bodies, the teachers' organizations. What's their job in terms of helping us to build back better? Well, the first job is to make sure we all understand the current situation, laying out factual infographics about where we actually are. There's some wonderful examples of that in terms of mental health, or in terms of poverty, or in terms of literacy, laying out, hey, this is where Canada really is with literacy. So, for example, documents that show us that 42% of the Canadian workforce do not have the literacy skills for the job that they currently occupy. That kind of information is critical in making decisions about all of our futures. The second task is for a professional body to use futures literacy skills to help look at pathways to the future. What are some of the probable and possible futures? And how do we actually navigate from where we are to where we need to be? And I think that involves the professional body saying, in order for us to deliver, for example, to eliminate this literacy problem, this is what that would take. This is the journey we need to embark on. These are the skills, these are the investments, these are the risks, and laying that out without trying to advocate or, block it up or make it look sexy, just lay out the stall very, very clearly. And in that, we need to lay out risk and challenges and to develop the kind of indicators that we need to see of whether we are making progress in building back better. And to do all of that, there's a lot of work to do, and I can guarantee this to you because I'm currently teaching a course on the future of the professions at the University of Alberta. There's a lot of work to do on reskilling and upskilling the membership of professional bodies in understanding their public roles and their public responsibilities. So that's what the professional organizations need to think about doing. And individual professionals can make a difference too. So as a professional, I'm a professional psychologist by training and trade. I'm a writer, a professional writer by trade. I'm a teacher. I'm involved with a whole raft of stakeholders, helping them think about what trust looks like and helping them build back social trust. So I take some personal responsibility for doing something about this work. We equally have to be really good and very professional at all we do. And I'm using my experience and time to mentor younger people who are just entering these professions, just beginning their journey on their career. I have 4 people I'm working with right now. But I'm, even though I'm 70, I continue to develop my own skills and competencies. So I've been learning, I've taken a number of courses this year so far, and I've got 4 or 5 more I want to do. So I'm current and up to date on ways of thinking, ways of working. A particular opportunity is to explore how we can leverage technology to make the work of professionals better. So what's a really powerful use of technology to do the things that we want to do? I'm doing that right now. And then I think we need to examine our own scope of practice. So whilst have boundaries, there are some things I can and can't do ethically and legally. I think the scope of practice is changing. So if you work with a teacher, their scope of practice has now embraces issues of mental health, issues of social sense and trust, issues of food security are all part of the teaching scope of practice. You can't learn if you're hungry. So teachers have been working in the community through their organizations and through the school districts to create school meal programs and to ensure the kids are fed. And if they're not fed, they can't learn. That's now part of the scope of practice of teaching. It wasn't when I began teaching back just after the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Now, I think these kind of ideas raise some big questions about professions. So I want to plant some seeds with you about what these concerns are. One of them is, should we be simply giving away a lot of professional knowledge? Should we just be making it more available through chatbots, through web spaces, through webinars to share our skills, expertise, and knowledge with the great public? And in some professions, that's already happening. But the other thing is our professional work is changing because of technology. I mentioned the example of the Moorfields Hospital where Google DeepMinds is now being used to diagnose eye disease because it's better, quicker, cheaper, and faster than human diagnostics. So what role can we imagine for technology in the future of professional work? And how do we accelerate its use and adoption in ethical and privacy secure ways? Does this mean we have to change our construction of what a profession is? There are lots of emerging professions that, for example, my colleagues in Australia held a meeting in November with 27 new organizations that claim to represent emerging professions. What are these new professions? Are we really understanding the role of professional in society? And if we want to build back better for a better Canada, how do we create a sense of the value of professional work and the value that not just simply individuals, but the profession collectively produces for society? And then the final question is can we actually do more to ensure our professional organizations and our professions are accessible to people from different ethnic, social, and cultural backgrounds? There are big concerns about equity, diversity, and inclusion within many of our professions. If we want to lead for a different future, to build back better, we need to change. And I think that's the underlying issue here. Hope this has been of help. It's clearly going to be an interesting journey as to how we build back better.